I've watched some of your interviews. I don't think I've ever seen an interview where copper doesn't come up for you.
Yeah.
And so I'll let you kind of outline, I guess, the power of copper in within the industry when you talk about it. It it covers. I've seen things where you're talking about it, how it follows oil,
hmm
how it'll beat out aluminum. So those are all big statements. So can you just unpackage, I guess your love of copper, but also your belief in its future as well.
Well, if you look at the cover of my book, and there it is here, you can see it
Yeah,
there.
it's perfect.
The common bond of society is energy, but also in many respects it's copper. So
Hmm.
all commodities in general, but it's everywhere. It's pervasive throughout society. And as we go through this hinge of history, it's going to be more relevant. So if you look at the UN has these 17 goals for sustainability in the future and what have you, copper is an important dynamic in 16 of the 17. We don't have the time to go through all 17, but we will glean over some
Hmm.
areas there. And if you
Yes.
could just put up the chart, the correlation of oil and copper, where
Hmm.
people can see, oil will continue to be a very important commodity, obviously. I understand how special and unique oil is.
That's actually, if I could, I wanted to touch on that
Yeah.
because oil, sometimes in these conversation it almost becomes like, if you're saying that copper is going to be high growth and so key, it's going to be involved in the 16 of the
This
17,
one, correct?
No,
The
the
other.
other one, the chart,
Oh, looking at the wrong one.
and
with
they
the orange line. Yeah, go ahead.
it's sort of a knock. It's almost becomes a knock on oil, but what you're talking about is that how why do you think oil is going to be so important, uh, as copper
Well,
with.
in any commodity, you have to look at the growth,
Hmm.
the underlying growth of the CAGR growth rate in demand. And everyone's arguing, when will oil demand go into terminal decline? Doesn't mean
Right.
it collapses. It's just no longer growth, where you have 1 or 2% growth per year.
Hmm.
Used to be 2040. Now people are saying 2030. There's people saying 2025. There's people saying the early 2020s.
Hmm.
What that means, it's of course still very important to the global economy, and we can get into the numbers later, but it's not growing.
Right.
So it becomes kind of, if I was to use it in a polite terminology, it kind of comes like tobacco. It's a business that nobody new gets involved with. You've got the sovereigns, the big corporations, but they slowly start pivoting. For every $1 of profit that they make, it starts pivoting into other things. And we could use the example of Royal Dutch Shell, where they acknowledge, Ben Van Beurden, the CEO, says, I sell people energy. Today they're 50-50 oil and
Mm.
gas. They're getting more involved in LNG and natural gas. And he says, paraphrasing, he can't tell you the exact date, but he says, in the future, I will be selling 75% of my revenue will come from selling people electrons or natural gas,
Hmm.
and only 25% from oil. Because he knows that the dynamic's changing. So if it becomes like tobacco, even thermal coal,
Hmm.
even tobacco, tobacco's been a shunned industry for 20 years,
But
30
a
years.
massive
But
industry.
it's still, those that are in it, they make a margin, and it's been an okay business.
Hmm.
Oil will be something similar.
Right.
Not interested. I want those things. I don't care what the widget, what the gizmo, what the commodity is. And copper, in my view, is going to have a CAGR growth rate of 4 or 5% for the next 10, 20 years. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Where will this copper come from? Which companies will look for this copper? Which companies will produce this copper? Because there's going to come a time, in my view, when eventually it becomes on the page one of the Wall Street Journal, page one of Barron's Magazine, and there will be a mania in owning things that either look for, produce copper, just
Hmm.
like we've seen in lithium, cobalt, cannabis, crypto. That's coming, as my friend Robert Friedland would say, coming to a theater near you.